Right now, the situation in the GPU market is quite dire and dreadful, leaving many people in this space with a difficult position. But I have some news for you guys which I think you're going to be thrilled about. Let's discuss that in this video. Hey, if you enjoy content like this, drop a like, make sure to subscribe, and smash that bell so you never miss another video. Hey, what is going on guys? Danny here, welcome back to the channel and I hope you've all been doing well. We've all known for quite some time now that Intel will be entering the GPU space. In fact, they've actually already been present with many products shipping today. They have graphics which are included in their desktop CPUs, mobile CPUs for laptops and NUCs, as well as a discrete desktop GPU. Intel's discrete DG1 GPU shipped to OEMs last year, but the reason why you probably never heard of it was because it was a very low-end discrete solution. According to Gamers Nexus's review of the DG1 GPU, it performed comparably to a GT 1030 and lost to AMD's 5600G and 5700G APUs. So it wasn't very impressive for gaming, hence it wasn't marketed as a solution for that. However, looking ahead to 2022, Intel has planned out multiple new products they'll be bringing to the market, including desktop GPUs for gamers. A leaked slide from the Baidu forums has indicated that Intel's upcoming ARC or Alchemist GPUs should be competitive against some popular SKUs from the market. Here in the slide we can see various segments with GPUs at different price points. Here you can see that they've got entry, mainstream, performance, and enthusiast segments. Within those segments they've also got a plus or minus subcategory to further indicate which price points those specific GPUs target. So you've got cards like the RTX 3080 and RX 6800 XT targeting the $600 to $699 price point. I know, sounds ridiculous right now because obviously those cards aren't selling at that point, but obviously Intel isn't going to go by street prices, so they'll have to list MSRP. They have no other choice. It doesn't seem like there will be a GPU that will compete against those cards in the DG2 lineup, but going further down we have the enthusiast minus segment where you have GPUs like the 3070 and 6700 XT in the high $400 range, and here we can see that within this segment Intel will be targeting those GPUs. This past year, since learning that DG2 will be multiple SKUs, we've heard from multiple sources that Intel's top-end card will compete with the RTX 3070, which definitely isn't a bad entry point into the market for a first-time player. If they can release a GPU for $430 or $400 and it trades blows with the 3070, that could be something worth considering. Now, I'm not sure if they're going to be releasing more than 2 SKUs because here we can see that they've got an SoC1 which will be geared towards the enthusiast and performance segments, but we do also see a range for what I presume is a TDP figure. They've got it listed at 175 watts to 225 watts, which could imply there being a cut down version, which will use 175 watts and target the performance plus segment, i.e. the 3060 Ti, 3060. Then we've got the SoC2 SKU which only has a TDP of 75 watts, suggesting just one model for this particular segment. I also find it hilarious that if this slide is true, Intel is at least recognizing the fact that the mainstream segment and entry-level market still exists, and those markets lay in the $100 to $200 segment, a segment which both AMD and Nvidia pretend like doesn't exist anymore, or that it's been shifted up. The 3060 and 6600 XT are supposed to be mainstream GPUs, but AMD and Nvidia seem to think that now $330 or $380 is now acceptable to call mainstream. It's not. Circling back to SoC2, we can see that they have slotted this model to target the mainstream segment, and we can see that the only other card listed in this segment is the GTX 1650 Super, a card which was released in November 2019 and competed with the likes of the RX 580 and GTX 1060 6GB, but it was written off as underwhelming since the 580 came out 2 years prior, albeit at a slightly higher price, and the 1060 came out in 2016, so it's not like you were getting a spectacular deal with this GPU to begin with. And that is what concerns me, because if Intel releases a GPU in 2022, prices it at around $150, and the best it can do is just edge out the 1650 Super, then that wouldn't really be all that impressive, even if it can be just powered off the PCIe slot. In my opinion, if Intel really want to capture the mainstream segment, then this GPU would have to be as fast as something like an RTX 2060 for less than $200. But I doubt that will happen. So if it's only as fast as a 1650 Super, then in my opinion, it shouldn't be more than $100. One thing I will point out to all of you who are happy that we are getting a third player in the GPU space, and trust me, I'm happy about it as well, but you have to remember that this is Intel we're talking about. Sometimes these guys have their heads buried so far in the sand and they act like they have no competition to worry about and price their products at price points that just don't make any sense to me. Just look at what happened with the X299 platform. When it was competing against Ryzen and Threadripper, or recently the i9 11900K. For all we know, their 3070 counterpart may be even more expensive than $499 because Intel. Adding some credibility to this slide, we had Greymon55, who a few days prior to this leak said on Twitter that there is an official Intel slide that shows 175 watt to 225 watt skew, or SKUs, not sure if SKUs was intended, but he mentioned it will be with the 6700 XT and 3070. Then on June 17th, we're talking almost 3 months ago, Tom Apisak, who usually data mines benchmark sites for unreleased hardware, posted on Twitter that an Intel GPU with 448 execution units at 1.8 GHz was trailing not too far behind the RTX 3070 and RX 6700 XT. And the second GPU with only 128 execution units was beating the 1650 Super by a 12% margin. Now, I believe that these results came from the Geekbench 5 benchmark database. What's interesting to note, however, is that they've listed the 6700 XT as slightly faster than the 3070, which we all know that in the majority of titles tested isn't the case. Still, the fact of the matter is that when you have two separate sources saying stuff that coincides with this leaked slide, then it could mean it's legitimate. Nonetheless, I am very excited to see that the market will finally have some more competition joining in, which could perhaps alleviate the supply/shortage problems, along with bringing better pricing. And since this is Intel's GPU division, hopefully unlike their CPU division, they recognize that they need to make a good first impression. Because I think for most people in the hardware space, their mentality is that they will go for an Nvidia GPU first. If not AMD, then they'll consider Intel as their last option, simply because they're new. Moving on, and I wanted to talk about an interesting rumor posted on video cards just a few days ago. They have received some info from their own sources stating that Nvidia will be releasing an RTX 2060 with 12GB of VRAM. The card will supposedly be targeting a release for later this year or early next year. Now, there are a number of reasons why I can see Nvidia doing this. For starters, supply for Ampere GPUs hasn't gotten any better, and with moves like this, Nvidia is probably anticipating the shortages to continue for the remainder of 2021, which seems likely with everything we've seen so far, and unfortunately throughout 2022. Nvidia can fall back to an already proven and extremely mature node, TSMC's 12 nanometers, and replenish some supply there. What kind of baffles me though is that this decision to double up the memory to 12 gigabytes doesn't really make sense to me, and I don't think it's that necessary for a GPU, as it will be the main bottleneck before memory constraints become an issue. Plus, if this GPU doesn't even have LHR, then miners are going to be salivating at the thought of getting their hands on another GPU model with a bunch of VRAM, because I think with Ethereum, it scales well off the amount of VRAM that you have available, and that's just going to create another whole mess. But according to video cards, it's a different PG161 model, which could have LHR built into it. At least I hope. That should be that way. As for performance, we already know that the 2060 performs pretty well at 1080p and can even do 1440p gaming depending on the title. If they can produce this card in mass, then I think a lot of people will be looking at buying this card as a stopgap solution since they can't get their hands on current gen GPUs, at least not for reasonable prices. But speaking of prices, that's still the big mystery here. We know that the 2060, when it came out, had an MSRP of $349, and they're not going to resell it again for that price. Even if it has 12 gigabytes of VRAM, that would just be silly considering the 3060 has an MSRP of $330. In late 2021 or early 2022, 2060 performance should be available for less than $200. But I know with everything that's going on, with people raving about increased costs and inflation, this GPU should have an MSRP of $220 to $250. Anything more than that, and it wouldn't be worth it in my opinion. So we've got some interesting days ahead of us. It doesn't seem like neither AMD nor Nvidia are done releasing cards just yet, and now we've got another new player entering the market, so keep your eyes peeled. I hope you guys found this video to be informative and helpful. Let me know your thoughts down below. Check out the video description on ways to support the channel and for my other videos. If you guys are interested in more content like this, then make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.